The next day, to occupy her mind, the protagonist went to her grandmother's restaurant on her day off, and there, Sarang gave her best as always. After the customers left, the protagonist's grandmother asked if there was something wrong with her granddaughter, as the lady noticed that no matter how hard Sarang tried, she was very downcast. And even though she denied it, in the end, the protagonist ends up commenting that she ended her relationship, and as she knows Sarang very well, the lady knows that the boy is to blame for them reaching this state. In the next scene, we see the president scolding his children. It turns out that after having tea with his industry colleagues, the man discovered that the King Hotel was surpassed for the first time in lounge sales, so the president opens the duo's eyes so that the same doesn't happen with other areas of the company. The gentleman still emphasizes that depending on his children's strategy, he will see who will inherit the company or if they will divide it. The next day, Sarang starts at Royal Smile, and for the first time, her superior seems to be a much better work companion than the others, as at least she doesn't demotivate our protagonist. The woman also advises her not to listen to what others say and to value herself without waiting for someone's approval, so she can do a good job and not get hurt when something gets out of control. Later, the protagonist is taken to Guwon's office to be introduced as the new Royal Smile employee, and at that moment, the man acted like a teenager bothering the girl he likes. This made Sang-sik realize that Guwon is falling in love with the protagonist. Moving on to the new team that Sarang will work with, since her superior was calm, it seems impossible for her colleagues to follow the same kindness, and once again, the protagonist encounters people who feel a lot of envy for each other. Meanwhile, Hwaran has already begun to implement her plan to double the sales of all King Group departments, so she visited some of the highest grossing stores to encourage them to double their sales and then those with the worst percentages. During her visit, the director already took the opportunity to make several employee cuts, and some simply because she didn't like the way they dress. At the same time, Guwon approached another strategy that would be instead of just demanding increased work, the man will reward those who demonstrate effort with a greater incentive than they have been getting all these years at Hotel King. And later, Guwon sends a message to the protagonist asking to see her after work. However, Sarang ends up going home without looking at her phone, and when the man called, his number wasn't saved, so the protagonist just ignored the calls. Now we move on to Deyul. Our young woman's married life isn't so good. It turns out that after a tiring day at work, when she arrives home, the woman finds her in-laws at the place, and besides demanding dinner, they also scraped all the food that was in the pots that Deyul had prepared earlier for her daughter. Meanwhile, her husband is supposedly working late. The next day, as Guwon didn't receive any response from his beloved, as soon as he arrived at the hotel, he went straight to Royal Smile and asked to talk to Sarang. The man gave his phone number as soon as he started talking and then invited her to dinner. However, the protagonist refused the invitation, thinking it would be very strange for the two to go out alone. And for this problem, Guwon found a solution. He asked Sang-sik to organize a welcome dinner for Sarang, but only with him and the woman present, so he would have a perfect excuse. Meanwhile, Pyonghwa was bothered at work by the presence of a pilot who pressured her to go out with him, even though the woman refused him several times, and it seems that this man has something that can be used against her, which is why he keeps blackmailing her. Rowoon noticed that something was wrong when he arrived and caught Pyonghwa uncomfortable, so to lighten the mood, he commented that his mother was very grateful for the gift and wanted the man to take her out to dinner. In the end, Pyonghwa ended up accepting, and they went to a very nice establishment. During the meal, Rowoon gave several indications of liking Pyonghwa, but always maintaining a certain distance and respect for her. Unfortunately, Guwon couldn't go through the same experience, as Sang-sik didn't understand that he wanted to have dinner only with the protagonist, and the man ended up organizing a meal with the entire team. The worst part is that it was in a Japanese restaurant, and as we know, Sarang doesn't eat fish, so when Guwon noticed that his beloved was the only one pretending to eat, he asked Sang-sik to get a steak for her from the restaurant next door, and now the protagonist's colleagues will have something to comment about her. Later, we see that Sarang called Guwon to talk about this strange way he's acting towards her and asked the man to stop, as now the protagonist will have to walk on eggshells to not be bothered by others in her team. The next day, Guwon is very thoughtful about what he heard the day before from his beloved, but forgets everything when he enters his office and finds his sister holding the pocket watch he received from his mother. Waran is there to tell the man once again to go abroad. She even threatens him by telling him to do this so he doesn't end up like his mother. And we see that the object is broken because of Waran, because when they were younger, the girl told the little boy that his mother left because she didn't want him, and just as she did, he should abandon the watch, so Waran threw it out the window. Besides having had a busy day at work, the protagonist had to deal with her ex-boyfriend when she left the company, and on her birthday, Sarang had to make it clear that she doesn't want anything to do with this boy who still has the audacity to tell her that she's a selfish person for breaking up with him. In the next scene, we see that the protagonist was crying alone in the rain when suddenly Guwon appeared with an umbrella to protect her. The man was also there for having had a bad day, but as it's not relevant, Guwon just offered a ride to Sarang. Due to traffic, the protagonist ended up falling asleep with the vehicle's movement, and when she woke up, Guwon hadn't taken her to a station as promised, but rather to dinner to celebrate her birthday, and he even bought new clothes so she wouldn't get sick with her wet ones. After Sarang was ready for the meal, she was surprised when she encountered Guwon, who had also changed his clothes, and they were matching. While eating, an employee took a picture of them together and even commented that they would make a beautiful couple, but of course, the protagonist made sure to explain that they are just acquaintances, and when it came time to pay the bill, Sarang even offered to pay. However, because of the exorbitant amount, Guwon used his credit card. The surprises didn't end there. Now we move on to when the man says goodbye to Sarang in front of her house and gives her a cake to make her day a little sweeter. The protagonist is grateful for what her boss did for her on this day, but also explains that she ends up feeling bad for making the hotel's cook stay longer than he should have on his shift. Guwon doesn't ignore these small lessons, and in the future, the man will always avoid making the same mistakes with his dedicated employees. However, before the protagonist enters the house, her ex-boyfriend appears accusing her of cheating, just because she was with Guwon, and at that moment, Sarang was sure she did the right thing in ending the relationship. Soon after, the protagonist enters the house, and Guwon makes it clear to Yunam to never bother Sarang again. Later, the man calls the protagonist and asks her to call him if something like this happens again. The next day, we see Pyeonghwa at work, and her superior offers her a partnership. As the woman is the only one from the first group who hasn't been promoted yet, her superior promises that if she works hard to sell more, this will be her reward. Moving on to Sang-sik in Guwon's office, the man accidentally saw the photo of his boss with Sarang that was taken the night before, and now, Guwon will no longer have peace on the subject. At night, the protagonist goes to see Guwon after work to give him a gift as a thank you for what he did on her birthday, and in the end, they end up going out to dinner, this time at Sarang's expense. They had a lot of fun. However, in the end, the protagonist commented that this would be the last time they would go out alone, as Sarang still doesn't feel comfortable. Meanwhile, Waran's husband appeared in Korea to ask for a divorce from his wife. Waran knows he has someone else and says it's okay with her, but that now wouldn't be a good time for them to sign the papers, considering the race for the King Group inheritance. However, her husband can't stand living this way anymore and just wants to be far away from her. The next day, Deol confronts the same lady who wanted to cause trouble at the King Hotel, but this time in her store, and once again, the lady was inconvenient. However, Deol maintained her composure and took a deep breath to not lose control. Meanwhile, at the King Hotel, there was a disagreement between Sarang and Guwon. The man didn't like seeing her flattering VIP clients on the phone just so they would come back more frequently, but anyway, although the protagonist doesn't like doing this either, she was just following orders. Gu-won somehow felt offended. In his mind, Sarang was losing her dignity just to get more money. That said, he chose for Royal Smile to go to Farmers Week, which consists of sending employees to spend the day working with those who provide the best products for the King Group and promote photos that look good in a campaign. Thus, being the newest member of the team, the protagonist ended up with what is considered the worst place. Her colleagues didn't even give her a choice. In the next scene, we see Sarang already at the location, where the wife of who would be the property owner comments that Hotel King will have to do much more than just send a gift for him to give in, as apparently, the gentleman is disputed by all the best hotels in the country. The man's wife told Sarang to just leave what she brought and rest. However, our protagonist always gives her best in everything she's assigned to, and this time would be no different. Sarang changed clothes and decided to climb the mountain just to greet the gentleman. Meanwhile, Gu-won has already started to feel bad for sending his beloved to the mountains, and the guilt worsened when he saw the weather forecast indicating that there would be a storm. So, Gu-won decided to call Sarang, and when she answered, he asked her to return immediately. However, the protagonist ended up spotting a plant that is considered rare in the middle of the conversation, and when she goes to remove it from the ground, Sarang ends up sliding to a more dangerous part of the mountain. When she wakes up, she's thankful to still be alive, but now the worry of finding someone to rescue her begins, which will be difficult, as her cell phone ended up staying with the owner's gift when she slid. Going back a bit in time, Gu-won was very worried right after his call with the protagonist disconnected, and he decided he would use the hotel helicopter to go rescue her. However, for this, the man would need Waran's permission, which when she heard the request, obviously denied. So, Gu-won decided to take the risks, and without his sister's permission, he hired a pilot to take him to the location. However, the man was only left on the mountain with Sarang. The two could not be rescued at that moment due to bad weather, and help will only arrive in the morning, which is already better than spending the night alone in that place. But soon a person they didn't expect appeared, and it's the owner that the protagonist was looking for. The man helped them get out of that place and then offered his house for the couple to spend the night. This experience made Gu-won promise Sarang that he will change the rules of the King Hotel. Seeing what happened to the protagonist and the concern it caused him, the man doesn't want it to happen to anyone else. The next day, before leaving, Sarang showed the owner the plant she found in the mountains, and upon analyzing it, the man said that the protagonist is a lucky woman. The plant is worth a lot of money, and since Sarang found it, the owner told her to take it and also left an open invitation in case the protagonist ever wants to work with him. Soon after Gu-won takes a vehicle, he takes Sarang to her grandmother, as she is the lady the protagonist wants to gift the rare plant to. However, only Sarang enters the restaurant, and soon he asks her to put on an apron to help her, even before seeing her gift. When the lady goes out to get onions from outside, she comes across Gu-won peeking inside the establishment to see his granddaughter, and upon discovering that the two work in the same place, soon he grabs him to help her too. And after the customers leave, the lady sends the two to the fair, where they have a lot of fun, and in a game, Gu-won even manages to win a prize. As soon as they return to the establishment, the couple eats a delicious meal prepared by Soon-hee, and in the end, she even makes a packed meal for Gu-won to take and pays them for their help at the restaurant. In the next scene, we see when Gu-won arrives home, and he offers the food he brought for his father to try. The president confesses to having liked the flavor very much, and soon the subject of rescuing an employee comes up. The gentleman sees this situation only as an unnecessary expense, but looking through his son's eyes, the president recognizes that it was a good action. The next day, Deul has a lot of work to do, and because of that, she won't have time to pick up her daughter from school, so she calls her husband to ask him this favor. However, the man comments that he will have to stay late at work because of a client, but when hanging up, we viewers see that he is actually playing a golf simulator. Meanwhile at Sarang's work, Royal Smile prepares for a birthday party for the daughter of another hotel's president who directly competes with them. The protagonist started her day excited because the night before Gu-won had invited her on a date. However, when the man arrives at the celebration, the birthday girl seems to be very close to him, which discourages Sarang. But when we see only Gu-won with the girl, we realize that actually only she is interested in him, as the man even asks the birthday girl to forget him. In the next scene, Sarang is having fun with her friends at home to try to cheer up, and right when they are doing karaoke, Gu-won appears at the door of the residence asking to talk to the protagonist. But with all the girls at home, it turns out that everyone sits around the table, and now, some lies are told. Gu-won didn't want his beloved's friends to treat him differently just because he is the president's son, so he introduces himself as Sarang's colleague. As soon as the two are alone, Gu-won clarifies the misunderstanding, and seeing the protagonist jealous, the man understands that she is also starting to like him. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, like and share to help me. See you next time.